So hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm here with two members of Team USA, one of the finalist teams at the 2014 KPMG International Case Competition in São Paulo, Brazil. The purpose of our live session today is to give all participating students the chance to hear about the KICC experience from former participants, Team USA here, gain insight into the competition, and prepare yourselves for the challenges that lie ahead. So we encourage you throughout the Hangout to submit in your own questions to Team USA using the Q&A chat function, which is found on the left-hand side of your screen. I'll be sure to answer your submitted questions throughout the Hangout. So let's get into it. To start off, my name is Julia Benusis, and I'm a member of our KICC planning team for the last 2 years. And I also work with KPMG Canada, my full-time job, managing our national campus programs and employer brand. So very excited to be here today with Vineet and Murali from Team USA. So I will turn it to both of them for a quick introduction. Go ahead, Vineet.
So hi guys, I'm Vineet. I'm a senior at the University of Southern California along with Murali. I actually did an internship and I accepted a full-time offer with KPMG for next year, but that all kind of started from the case competition, and I think Murali and I had a really great experience there, and we're really looking forward to sharing that with you guys.
Hi everyone, as Vinita, my name is Murali. I'm currently a junior at USC. I'm studying business, and I also have a minor in enterprise information systems. And as Vinita said, we had a phenomenal time at KICC. I think it's one of the best experiences I've had actually at college, just because it had so many different opportunities, which we'll talk about. But I'm really excited to share as much about it. Thanks, Julia.
Fantastic. And I know I'm really excited to hear from both of you, and likewise from all the participating countries around the world. We're very excited for 2015 KICC because it's our biggest yet, with 28 participating countries. So let's think back to over a year ago when you just started going through the KICC experience in the US. And why don't you tell us how you first heard about the KPMG International Case Competition? I'll turn it over to Vineet to start off.
Well, I guess it's a pretty big thing at USC, at least. You know, the team from USC last year, the year before us, sorry, went to international. So you know that gave it a lot of publicity on campus, and one of the recruiters did a really good job of promoting it. And actually, Murali came up to me and said, "Hey, this is a really cool thing. You know, it's one of our first case competitions." And so we wanted to assemble a team because, you know, we really wanted to go to Brazil at that time. And so that was kind of our goal the entire time, to go to Brazil, because it was going to be our first times in Brazil and the World Cup and stuff. So we had, you know, two parts of motivation. One is doing the actual case competition, which we, you know, actually enjoy doing, but also kind of going to Brazil.
Fantastic. And I just see that we have some additional viewers to the Hangout, so welcome. And for those that joined a little bit late, I'm Julia Benusis and part of the KICC planning team. And here we have with us two members of Team USA. So you just heard from Vineet, and he was explaining when he first heard about the KPMG International Case Competition at school. Now I'm going to turn it over to Murali to talk about why he wanted to participate in KICC.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, there were, at least for our team as well, there were, I think, 3 reasons. The first one that I thought that's really unique about KICC, as I'm sure all of you are about to experience, is just the international experience. And what I mean by that is doing a case competition abroad is probably something that you'll never get to do in college, or at least most students don't get to do. And so having that opportunity was just phenomenal. I love traveling personally, and I think doing it with something that is business related or something that I personally enjoy through cases was just the biggest draw there. And then the second element that I really loved about it was the opportunity that you got in terms of networking or meeting different KPMG professionals was something that KICC did a really great job. And there's so many different events that allow you and enable you to meet different people and KPMG professionals from Brazil. Like, I still remember my conversations with managing partner of management consulting in Brazil. Like, he's just a great guy, and I think those are the conversations that you really can keep and remember, hopefully, like, throughout your experience now, but even further down. I think those relationships are something that KICC really helps cultivate and develop.
For sure. I remember being there in Brazil and just also my first KICC experience last year there, and just being amazed by all the amazing students from around the world. Was such a great opportunity to connect with KPMG people worldwide. It's such a unique opportunity. So this year, all of our national competitions have taken place. So we have our 28 participating teams. So congratulations to everyone that has been involved. And all of our national competitions are a little bit different, and they vary by country. They're quite elaborate in the U.S., so be interested to hear from both of you about how that national competition went in the U.S. last year. So I'll get first to Vineet for this question.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there were 3 rounds for the U.S. at least. We had the campus round at USC, where at least us, we had around 35 teams competing. And then after that, we went to Dallas, Texas for the Western regional rounds. And there were 5 such Western regions in the United States. So then after we won at the Western regional rounds, we went on to the national rounds in New York City, New York. And I think the coolest part was that we got to meet different teams from different schools throughout the United States throughout the entire competition, and it was interesting. First we competed against USC teams, then we competed against teams from California, mostly in Texas and Oregon, then we competed against teams from Chicago, Boston, all these different places across the United States. And in terms of the logistics, there were different cases every round with the 3-hour time. With the 3-hour time, I'm sure most of you guys had similar competitions, at least at the national round, so you kind of know what I'm talking about.
Great, and you successfully made it through those 3 rounds to get to KICC. Now, can you talk to us about the preparation that your team did leading up to KICC? Because right now we're in the midst of that for all the teams getting ready for KICC and just a couple weeks away. So I'll turn it to Merle. Do you want to talk to us about what kind of preparations your team did?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the most obvious answer that this is really straightforward is practice, but I guess to make that a little more contextual and more helpful, I think there's 2 elements behind that. The first is, are you actually learning and improving every time you're practicing? Every time I think we did a case, we made sure that we practiced in front of an audience that was able to provide us critical feedback, whether it's our peers or whether it's someone who's never even heard of the case. And you get different elements of feedback every time you do that, and that's sort of helped our structure and also our presentation skills, that I think really set us apart. The second element was basic repetition in terms of being able to understand what we're doing. 3 hours is a very small amount of time, and as I'm sure you all know, that's something that you all have been successfully able to do. And just making sure that you know each and every one of your individual strengths, I think, is really critical, which sort of goes into, I guess, the second tip about how we sort of practiced. And our preparation was not only just doing cases, but also hanging out as a team. And that sounds really weird and very different. But part of, I think, the element that we understood is team chemistry, and being able to understand each other really well. For example, Vineet, when I was building a PowerPoint, one of our teammates said something really long, and I couldn't condense it into 3 words that are required for the slide, but Vineet just read my mind and knew what I was looking for and gave that to me, which saved us so much time. It's the small things that really add up, and I think part of that is developed to the team chemistry that we really encouraged during our practices.
Mm-hmm. That's a great answer. Vineet, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, I think another thing that's very important is kind of reaching out to maybe the team from last year from your country, who might be able to provide you specific feedback, or who might be able to actually be that audience for your presentation. Sometimes this isn't possible depending on where that team was from, but maybe even having the KPMG recruiter be a mock audience for your presentation, because they would be able to give you maybe some tips about the presentation side of it, because they've probably seen a lot of these in their time.
Mm-hmm. And that's fantastic feedback there. And so we're actually at, now let's fast forward, we're at KICC a year ago. And what you remember from that first day of competition is that partner planning meeting. So that's something a little bit different because you don't see that in the national competitions. And so can you tell us a bit about how that partner planning meeting went and how students can best prepare for it? So I'll turn it to Vineet for this question.
Yeah, I remember hearing about the partner planning meeting when we actually got to Brazil, so we weren't very familiar with it, but it actually wasn't really anything to worry about. Basically what it is you go in after, I believe, an hour or so of analysis and reading the case before you make any recommendations or anything, and you kind of outline the key issues you found inside the actual case. And you talk to some of these partners who are going to be there just for you. And you talk them through what you think are the important parts of the case, what you're looking at, what you're targeting at, what you're concerned about, and they basically tell you if you got it on, if you're on point, if you're headed in the right direction. If you missed anything, they would kind of like push you towards that. And it's basically to make sure that you have the key issues down, so that when you're moving into your recommendations, you're really hitting on that and making sure that your presentation is basically based on the correct analysis. And it's not really anything to worry about. The preparation is basically you reading the case and analyzing it, which you would do anyway. And it's not a real presentation or anything. You basically sit down and have a meeting with them face to face.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great part of KICC, is just being able to get that feedback from the judges. As you know, and all our viewers know, our judges from worldwide across our KPMG member firm network, all different backgrounds, audit, tax and advisory, and also HR. So they all come with different perspective to the presentations and giving you feedback there. So can you talk to us a bit about the type of feedback that you received from judges, not necessarily just from the partner planning meeting, but on the course of the couple of days? Really, I'll turn it to you for that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so we had, within, I guess, like within our international experience in Brazil, we had 3 opportunities to receive formal feedback. And I think the one thing that I'm very grateful for throughout each feedback session that we have is that the partners and the judges that are sort of judging you in these different competitions are like trying to help you, and they're doing the best of their ability to answer any one of your questions in terms of what they thought of your strategy or your approach to the case. And so I think the first element behind that is like having that open feedback is just a great channel to have. And I think the natural element of the partner planning meeting, as well as these different like the feedback sessions, allow you to actually ask questions as well as a participant to see what the judge's thoughts were on different elements. And I think having that like very clear transparency is really critical, because it can help you do better on the next case. And so as a team, to be specific, we took some of the elements that we got from our first case and implemented it in the second case. In the second case, I think we took feedback there and found a middle ground. I think that really helped us for finals. But to be, from what I remember, Vineet, you can correct me if I'm wrong, our first case, like, we were told that we were too financially oriented, or the lack thereof, and then the second case was the exact opposite. And sort of finding that middle ground was really critical, and something that really pushed our team over the edge, at least from what I personally experienced. And Vineet, you can add on if you have anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that our second case was a lot better than our first case in terms of the rounds. And I think that that's largely in part due to the fact that the judges told us, one is that financially oriented aspect, and another one is making sure we got the key issues. And I think our key issues, they wanted to emphasize that we should be a little more broad and not as specific in honing down the key issues and making sure that we take that into consideration for our recommendations. And I think that only by using that feedback were we able to go into the second round with a little bit of a different mindset and use that mindset to kind of jump into the final round.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And we did receive a question through from one of our viewers from the Q&A, and the question was if you're judged at the partner planning meeting. So Vadim, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so you definitely are not judged at the partner planning meeting. You are simply, given not instructions, you're given constructive feedback on how to proceed for the rest of the presentation, and then you're judged at the end of the presentation. So you don't have to worry about what you say at the partner planning meeting or if you got the analysis right on the head, because you've only had like 45 minutes to an hour, I believe, of having the case.
I will add to that by saying I do remember explicitly that it's really important to understand what are the key takeaways in your partner planning meeting and making sure that you implement the feedback that you get just from the meeting itself, or like the different, I guess, issues that you sort of discuss with the partners moving forward, and actually show it in your case. Because from what I remember is the partners, they have someone actually typing up the notes of that meeting, and they share it with the judges that you have for that first case. So that's something to keep in mind as a team.
So just to add on to that again, yeah, so I completely agree. I think to clarify, Merle is basically saying that, if the partners tell you you're not on the right track with the key issue, and then you ignore their advice, that's obviously not going to be a good move, because the judges are going to see that you ignored their advice even after getting it. So that's just something to take into consideration.
Perfect. No, that's a great answer there, and you're exactly correct in that way, is that the partner planning meeting is there really to help everyone. The first day of KICC, everyone's from different national competition, and we're here to make sure you're prepared, and that is totally to help the teams make sure they're on the right track. But they do take notes in terms of the feedback that they provide, and that would be part of when they're looking at your presentation on that day one, to make sure that you did integrate that feedback. So great little piece of advice there is the advice that you get during the partner planning meeting, make sure that you are integrating that into your final client presentation. Fantastic. So we had a good discussion there about judges and the feedback. So what I'm interested in hearing about is one thing that really surprised you, most about KICC. There's so much build up. Last year going to Brazil, this year we're going to Dubai. I know I'm very excited. So really, what was the one thing that just completely surprised you that maybe you didn't expect about KICC?
I'm going to need to take a second for that.
Okay, I'll turn it.
I definitely think.
Okay.
Okay.
I can jump in real quick. I think the ability to experience the culture of the country you're visiting. It's a lot about the case competition, but it's not completely about it, right? You have I don't know how many number of days, but a significant number of days, and you have the opportunity to go tour around the city you're in, eat the food, meet the partners, experience the culture, and that's something that I really wanted to do, but I wasn't sure if I was going to, because this case competition is going to take up the majority of my time. But at the same time, KPMG did a great job of, first of all, bringing the Brazilian culture into the case competition, into the meetings, into the dinners, into the meals, but also allowing us kind of free time to go tour around the city, or to do a scavenger hunt around Sao Paulo, or things like that, which was really cool and which I really appreciated, because it was my first time going to Brazil.
Yeah, I guess to add on that, I will preface it by saying that to be honest, I don't think all of us knew what to expect, because it was our first international case competition. But for me, I definitely was super excited and glad to say it was easily the funnest thing ever. I know that's not a word, but it was so fun. And the part of that, as Vineet said, is because I think KPMG does a great job in allowing you to experience the area as well as get to meet so many different people. I still have friends from different schools that I met and different countries that I met at KICC, and we still stay in touch over Facebook. And I think that speaks large volumes to the competition itself, and something that was really surprising, because I wasn't expecting to go to a case competition to make friends from different countries.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I think that is probably one of the, what I hear that from other years as well, is that the element of surprise is that, there's lots of opportunity for fun and networking. It's a jam-packed 4 days. The competition is obviously quite busy in the main part, but there's so much emphasis on making sure that you're networking with the other teams and our judges and a country rep. So yeah, everyone is in for a lot of fun in Dubai this year as well. And what do you feel that what made it a good learning experience? Perhaps I'll turn it to Vineet to speak about that.
I think adding the international aspect to it gave you kind of the ability to learn a lot more about cultures in different countries, but also business in different countries, and that's something that personally we didn't know a lot about until we started this case competition, and we started doing practice cases, and we started doing the actual cases, which are all very internationally focused. And the fact that we didn't only focus on what's happening in the United States gave us the ability to bring in different perspectives. This is a certain current event that's going on, and this is a case that's going on in the same region. Like, how do we put those two together? And just basically using that knowledge that either we got from academics or current events or something, and putting it to kind of like the real world and out in a case competition, I think makes it a great learning experience to kind of see how you can apply the knowledge yourself.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Really, do you have anything to add?
And is there anything that you would have done differently?
I would say that one of the biggest experiences I think that I really enjoyed was like having, or something that I guess like I wish we changed, was the element of being more cultural or being more global in our approach. I think one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we received in the finals, I think, that would have differentiated ourselves was putting a more global lens in how we approach the case. And I think that's something that I wish, and I hope all teams really consider when you're looking at this problem. You're at an international experience, an international case competition, and you're not just focused within your country, and you're not just focused within the values that, or the cultural values that you've sort of been instilled on within your country. So something that I wish we sort of approached earlier on, and something I think we did well at certain time periods, is keeping that global mindset and then using that throughout the entire competition when you're approaching the case as well.
Mm-hmm. I would echo that as well, and I think that's a great lead into my next question, is really, the advice for the 2015 participating teams is taking that worldly view, and the more that you can do leading up over the next couple of weeks and just being caught up in what's going on in the world, both politically, business, economically, just that will really help you going into the case competition. So kind of took your advice there, and segue into our next question is, Vineet, do you have advice that you would like to share with the 2015 participating teams?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's going to be one of the most fun experiences of your life, probably, at least so far. So, definitely take it all in, enjoy it. It's only going to last for like a week or so, and then you're going to have to go back to school. So, have a lot of fun while you're there. But also keep kind of a goal in mind. You're there to participate in this case competition. So while you're having fun, make sure to as Julia said, keep up with the news. What's happening in different parts of the world. Maybe something happens in Canada for in the news, and your case is on Canada. And if you hadn't read up on Canada before, then maybe you would have missed out on a certain recommendation. So definitely keep in touch. Look at what's happening in the business news. Look at what's happening in the stock market. All of this stuff while you're in Dubai, and having fun. In the times leading up to it, kind of keep practicing. We used to do, I don't know how many, multiple 3-hour cases a week. That's probably not possible if you're going through finals or dealing with school right now, but do as many as you can. Definitely, the more the better, because it kind of gets you in a groove, and you kind of, as Merle said before, get to know your team better, get to know yourselves better, you get to know kind of the structure of these cases better, and get to work within that 3 hours so that you feel more comfortable with that. Merle, do you have any other advice?
I think, yeah, so Vineet hit on like 2 points. To reemphasize, I think what I actually saw that really differentiates teams, and that's having talked to other finalist teams, was actually like the team chemistry, and I think part of that is you get pushed to your limits with these types of cases in terms of differences in opinions, as well as differences in what you guys can approach these different cases with, and so having a strong team chemistry is really critical to ensure that you're actually effectively using your time within those 3 hours and actually approaching it the right way. And I think that's what really separated a lot of teams that made it to finals. And one thing that our team really prides ourselves on that we owe is that every judge actually gave us like positive reviews or feedback for was like that team chemistry and element. And I know it's a very like soft and intangible thing to really quantify, but that element is a strong distinguishing factor, and that's the first thing. I think the second element is when you're there, I would go with an open mind and try and learn as much as possible about different cultures, and that's something that I try to do because I've not had as many opportunities to travel abroad, so I really took advantage of this one, and I think that's something that I really loved, and I'm really jealous that all of you are going to Dubai because that is a beautiful, beautiful place.
Fantastic advice. There's lots of wisdom there for our teams going this year. So last question to end off our Hangout today is, how has the KICC experience helped you so far with pursuing your career or further education, or with your current education, as I know both of you are in your junior year and your final year? So Vineet, perhaps I'll turn it over to you first.
Yeah, I think I can speak a lot to this actually, because as I was going through KICC, I was going through the recruiting process with KPMG. And after I won national rounds, I was done with my first round of interviews, and kind of got the exposure to the recruiters at the USC round and in LA, and they were able to kind of talk me through it and help me along in moving through the recruiting process. And by the end of it, I actually had an internship with KPMG, and that was largely in part due to kind of like the networking aspect of this. So meeting with the recruiters, meeting with some of the partners in the office kind of gave me a sense of KPMG's culture, even more than just the recruiting process itself did. So one, it helped me kind of get to know KPMG, and two, it also helped KPMG kind of get to know me. And so when I was doing my internship this summer at KPMG, a lot of people had actually heard of KICC and us winning at KICC, and so all the recruiters were kind of familiar with it there, and they kind of actually told my practice before I got in. So it kind of left a good first impression, which is kind of cool. And then when I accepted my full-time offer with KPMG in September, it kind of was sort of a motivation. KPMG treated me really well throughout this case competition, as probably all of you can attest to, because of the large amounts of food they provide. But then it kind of gave me a sense of KPMG as a company, and I really enjoyed that.
And Merle, do you have anything to add on there?
Yeah, so I guess I can speak from someone who is a little bit younger, I guess, in academic years. So for me, I think a lot of it was being able to realize what sort of appeals to me, and I realized that I actually enjoy doing cases and case competitions, which made me realize that, hey, I think consulting is something that is definitely up my alley, or something that I can really see myself doing from a career perspective. But I think from a business angle, I think I also was able to understand more that my educational background and focus should be more towards like strategy-oriented roles, because I think that's something that really appeals to sort of my interest, and I think a lot of that was just developed through the competition itself.
Great. So before we end off, we did get one last question through the Q&A, and I'll just make sure we'll get that covered off before we end off. So the question was about the judging criteria and also about what you felt was your presentation that really got you into the finals. So today we talked about your team chemistry, we talked about integrating the judges' feedback from the partner planning meeting, and having that balance that you got from the feedback about including financials and not including too much. Is there anything that you wanted to add in just to about that question about judging criteria and what really you felt was your presentation that made it to the finals?
Yeah, I think the first thing, I guess, in addition to everything that Julia said, that she reemphasized was, do you have innovation and creativity grounded in feasibility? And what we mean by that is, are you really pushing sort of your limits and you're also being realistic? And I think that's something as a team that we would like throw out different ideas, and a lot of it was like shooting it down, but also seeing like what are the pros and cons with everything. Like I don't think there's a perfect strategy, and it's very hard to come up with the perfect strategy and recommendation within the small amount of time. So making sure that you are doing like you're really testing your innovativeness and your creativity, but also being feasible at the same time. And I think the second differentiating factor was, like we mentioned, like the global mindset, and that's something that all the partners, every feedback session reemphasized. And just to reemphasize again, I think that's very important, and you'll notice it's something. And to be a little bit more specific for what that really means is, as Vineet mentioned, imagine you have a recommendation that is in a certain country that directly conflicts with either the culture or the economic development in that country at that time period. So being able to understand what it means to be in that culture and what it means to sort of impact business globally in that sense is something that you should really keep in mind. I think is a very strong differentiating factor for teams that actually acknowledge that. And I think the third and last thing is, when you're doing your presentation, are you really pushing, sort of fleshing out your entire recommendations? And I think that's something that our team did a pretty good job in, or at least a lot of the finalist teams were more focused on the content of ensuring how your recommendations were consistent with your analysis, and not spending too much time on the analysis portion in the beginning of the presentation and regurgitating the case facts.
Yeah, I think to add on, definitely also making sure that everything, whether it's the recommendations, whether it's the key issues, are kind of clearly presented to the judges. So, making sure that kind of they get what you're putting out there, because, whether it's through a clear PowerPoint, whether it's through a clear presentation, making sure you don't distract them. If somebody is presenting, you guys aren't in the background, talking to each other or something. Just making sure that the entire presentation is kind of like what you would do at a client site or something, very professional, very clear, very on message. I think that's something that's very important to the judges.
Fantastic. That is, I think, some great advice there. So a big thank you to everybody that joined us for the Hangout with two members of Team USA, Vineet and Millie. Thank you so much for sharing your advice and your KICC 2014 experiences. If anyone has further questions after that, we encourage you on the event page. There's a comment box, and you can leave your questions, and we'll be checking over the next couple weeks if questions come through, and I can send those off to Vineet and Millie to answer directly on the event page. So thank you very much for attending, and to all the 2015 participating teams, I'm very excited to meet you in Dubai, and I know that we all wish you the best of luck in your final preparations.